We are a go. Test. Ashley, I have a confession. I have watched.
We're going-ish.
I'm not sure if I wanted to intro this way, but I was thinking about an intro.
Okay.
Just wait, I want to be surprised.
And I feel like this might be. I don't know if this is morally correct or not. You guys are gonna have to decide, okay?
Cool. Yeah. We'll have to either cut it or.
Okay, I'm ready now.
This might cause.
Is
you
this
more.
sensitive? Like if I touch this?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm about to say?
Wait, are we?
Are we going?
Yeah,
Go
go
for
for it.
Okay. Well, okay. This case, we don't have the intro because this might not be it.
We're
But
just kinda
I have a
here.
confession to make to you,
What's
mate,
your
and I thought this
confession?
would be good to make on camera. I have been using your Disney Plus account,
Oh no, I'm very well aware because Jordan.
and
told me.
Yeah.
I've watched.
Jordan the other day was like, we watch, what is it? The
Incredibles.
Incredibles?
Yes.
Yeah, they're like, we watch it on your Disney Plus account.
I finished it last night.
All I'm gonna say is you owe me 50 cents per movie.
Shoot.
I don't know if that.
Just Venmo
See,
me.
is it like morally correct to use someone else's Disney Plus account?
Totally.
If they give you
Totally.
authority.
Password sharing is only illegal, not morally.
Netflix,
incorrect.
but is it illegally morally incorrect?
I don't even know if it's illegal. They just kind of cracked down on it.
See, I felt bad because I don't know if I want to
I'm
model
logged
that
into
for
so
our
many
kids.
devices with my Disney Plus. It's not
Okay.
even funny.
Well, Netflix changed their entire model because they were losing so much money because
I don't think-
password sharing.
I don't
like
think-
Yeah.
completely restructured. I haven't watched
Yeah.
Netflix in 2 years because they took away my parents' account from me.
It's okay.
But-
Disney will never have that problem.
That's what I was gonna say. Is Disney makes money off of everything. Netflix, literally, the only way that they make money is
That's true.
streaming.
That's so true.
So, anyways, you just owe me 50 cents per movie.
All right, guys, that was our podcast on password sharing.
Peace.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Yep.
See you guys
All right,
later.
should we actually intro?
Yeah, if you want to.
And friends, welcome back to the For the One podcast. This is our April episode, and we have a very, very special guest today by the name of Ashley Rendon.
Yay! I'm
Ashley,
so
how you
excited.
doing?
I'm great. I'm currently really shaky because I've had like 2 cups of coffee today. But other than that, I'm really good.
Hey, caffeine can be a really good thing, and
Except for on an empty stomach.
yes, that's
Yeah.
not good.
I haven't eaten.
Well,
It's the John Bramber
what's your
first.
coffee? What's your coffee order?
Well, I just whatever we have in the office at my work.
Okay.
It's free.
Let's go.
It's a good Nespresso,
Free
little
coffee is the best
5-ounce
coffee.
pod, and works for me.
I love some good coffee. I had my cup of coffee today. John, have you had your cup of coffee?
You know, honestly, I've been more on a tea kick.
Wow, on a
Yeah.
tea kick.
Yeah.
That's good. That's bougie, bro.
Because, well, it's just better for your voice.
That's smart.
Also, just probably better for all parts of your health.
Dude, tea and coffee. It says a lot about
Coffee's
the
not-
season of life. You know?
Yeah. What does,
Does
it
it?
say?
I don't know. I don't
Expound.
know. We should get to our content. Well, on this podcast, if you're new with us, we John and I like to interview people from our community and hear their testimonies and their stories, and kind of get a look into what God might be doing in our community, and open up a conversation that usually would happen in a one-on-one context. Or a smaller group context, and open it up to the entire church through the vehicle of the podcast. So, Ashley, we're just so excited to hear your story and, be a part of what God's been doing in your life over like 5 years at OneLife.
Yeah. It's been 5 years this summer.
Yeah. So, would you just like give an introduction to who you are, like currently, your family situation, your work, your life, like just if someone doesn't know Ashley Rendon right now, would you give them an intro?
Yeah, for sure. So, right now, family life. I mean, my parents are such a key part of my life and who I am. They always will be. They always have been. They're my best friends. So I'm living with my parents. I love them dearly. I have an older brother who's awesome. He's incredible. And then I'm engaged to John, of course. So that's exciting, and it's exciting to see him and my family interact and that whole dynamic. It's very interesting,
It's
but very
something to
fun.
see.
Oh,
It's a
fun.
I love
spectator
this.
sport, actually.
It's
People pay.
Yeah, I get it for free, but everybody else has to pay. It's really interesting.
What does that mean?
But
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
him and my dad in the same room is insane.
Wow,
but
this
in
is
the
just
best
outlook into your guys' relationship.
in the best way
interesting?
possible. It's very
fun.
interesting, but it's fun. We oh gosh, we have a fun dynamic in my household. But yeah, that's my family. I'm working at a place called the Solomon Foundation, which is really cool ministry, really cool nonprofit. Shameless plug. They help churches, and they're technically a church extension fund. And so they actually helped OneLife get the building that we're in now too. So I get to work there. I do admin stuff there. I love it. I love it so much. I've been finding lately in the season that I'm at now, I've had a lot of good fellowship there with my coworkers.
Wow.
Which is crazy because it's like not many people get to say that, you know. But here lately I've been finding myself in the past few months just super grateful for my coworkers, for my boss, for my team that I'm on. But I mean, it's just, yeah, it's really sweet. So that's where I'm at. I love it.
So good.
Yeah.
And what's your role at
It's fun.
StudentLife?
So in StudentLife, so I am one of the small group leaders, one of the adult leaders. So I have the junior, senior girls, which I love so much. I love those girls. They're awesome. We've had a lot of new girls in our group, and so that's been really exciting to see the new faces, but they're committed. They're consistent. They're showing up every single week. It's not just, random sporadic. Oh, like I'm coming with my friend.
Like whole new crew.
It's crazy.
It's incredible. We started off this school year with like 3 girls, 3 students, and then it's grown to, I think consistently there's probably about 10 girls every single night.
Praise the Lord.
And then a few more who come here and there. So so that's been exciting. So for StudentLife, I do that, and then I also do all of our like graphics, our graphic designs for our announcements, our series, our website, merchandise. I had to put it on today.
Let's go.
And yeah, I think that's pretty much about it.
You are such a leader in our community,
Yeah,
and
I
thanks
love
for sharing that.
Yeah.
Those roles you play.
I love
They're
it.
really important to all of us,
Mhm.
including John and I,
Yeah.
as pastors overseeing
makes our life so
StudentLife.
much easier to
Yes.
like take our hands off of some of those like graphic design pieces and also just to really trust you, with your girls to be able to take our mind off of like there's not a question as to whether or not you're leading them well. We just have complete confidence that you do.
Yeah, you're just a very, very like strong leader in our community in so many ways, Ashley. And one of the primary ways is spiritually. You have a testimony, you have a story, you have a walk with Jesus that is contagious, that so many of our younger students are emulating. I had a conversation with someone this week, got to interact with someone's words about you, and just how a person in our community just wants to be like you and wants to imitate your experience and walk with God. And so would you just let us into how did you meet Jesus? How did you become the woman of God you are? Yeah. Let's start from the beginning, and we'd love to just give you a place to share that to our community.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, so I grew up in, I would say a Christian household, but more so I feel like it was I grew up with Christian parents. It wasn't like a continuous thing that we were rooted in a community. We weren't rooted in a church throughout my entire childhood and throughout my entire upbringing. But my parents are Christians, and so they would pray. We'd pray before we ate. We'd pray before we went to bed. We would try and find churches here and there, and we just never really stuck with any of them for, different list of reasons, but it was never like a huge part of our routine. But growing up, I definitely look back and I truly believe I've always believed in God. I've always believed in the fact that I was a Christian. I remember even as a little kid, I didn't really fully know what that meant, but I would consider myself a Christian, and I knew that I believed in God. And that was kind of the limit, though. That's kind of where it's always stopped until kind of about high school, I would say. Through middle school, of course, we all have our own, middle school experiences, and for the most part, they're not great, and neither was mine.
Middle school. We love you, middle schoolers.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we have such a heart.
Dude, they're probably listening in like their 6th grade math class.
Yeah.
I'll get them dropping that every once in a while. I listen to 4th one during class. I'm like that's
why
not
are
a
you
great
not-
thing.
I
I'm thanks.
Yeah, that's
do
cool.
geometry.
Yeah, pay attention
This
to
is
what
why
you're
you
supposed
have
to be
a
doing.
Anyways, shout out middle school years for Ashley. Average.
Yes, yeah.
Harder middle school years.
Yeah, horrible middle school years.
Horrible. Yes, that's the right word. That's honest. That's honest.
Let's go.
So they weren't great, but again, it was weird because, I had Christian parents, and my mom would pray for me and, speak truth into my life. And I knew that I had even Christian grandparents, so it's a very generational thing of I knew that they were praying for me. But we weren't really rooted in church. We weren't rooted in a community, and I didn't know where I stood with my faith. Again, I think I've always truly believed in God, but I didn't know, I didn't believe that he was really a good God. I didn't know what that really looked like, believing in God, and what that meant to be Christian. And so actually I did online school for all of my middle school, all 3 years of middle school.
Whoa,
so,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so just horrible anxiety actually came up in 6th grade when I started to go to middle school. And we were like, all right, we got to figure out what works for us and what works for me. And online school was the route that we took. And so I did that, but it still was not fun. It was not a fun experience. And so I knew by the time I got to high school, I was very familiar with Grandview High School, so that was the school that I was going into. Go Wolves. And so I knew that I wanted to go back into public school. I wanted to get offline and go back in person. And I was excited to. I was excited to kind of have this like restart and this refresh. So I say all that because going into my freshman year, I still kind of had that identity as Christian, and I still considered myself a Christian, but we still weren't in church. I still didn't really know what that meant, and I would tell other people that I was Christian, and that was kind of, something that I wasn't shying away from, but it was still weird and it was still hard because I didn't know how to act out that world and out that life and what that meant and what that looked like. And so so I would say throughout my freshman year, I look back and it was marked by a lot of loneliness. I was still having a very hard time of finding deep friendships. I was very sociable. I was very extroverted. I was very outgoing, and I had a lot of friends like in my classes. I had a lot of friends like during passing periods and during lunches and all that. It's like I had people to talk to during the school day, but I'd go home and not have any like true deep friendships that lasted. And so it was very lonely. It was very, very lonely. It was very isolating, and I felt like I was very behind socially. But I also felt like I was very behind in my faith too, because it was this weird tension of I don't have many deep friendships, so I feel very behind in that way. But I also, it's hard to like go to it because we were trying to go to different churches and we were still trying to find a church. So when I would go, I still felt very behind also at a church because I'm like, I don't know who Jesus is really. Like, I don't know what the gospel is really. I don't know the Bible at all. I don't know, the very basics of Christianity. So I felt very behind in a lot of different areas in life. But overall, I also just felt very lonely. It felt very isolating. I didn't fit in at church. I didn't fit in at school. And those were kind of the two major places that I would go, and that I tried to fit in. Yeah. So that was difficult. Freshman year ended and then the summer came, and I think that's really when it started to set in of, okay, we're trying to go to church more often with my parents and we're trying to find the right church for us. And still I would show up and we felt, or I felt very isolated and different from everybody else. But then I also realized of, oh shoot, like school's over. That was the only time that I was social with my friends. Like I didn't have friends that I wanted to hang out with outside of school. And so when summer comes, it's like I don't have the opportunity to be, to be with friends, to make friends. And so that was very sobering, and realizing like, oh, like that's when the loneliness like really sunk in of like, oh, like these friendships weren't made to last outside of just the school year and outside of the class. And so that was really hard. That was a really hard pill to swallow. So then COVID hit, and I feel like it's so interesting in our generation. I'm hearing that that's a big part of a lot of different people's testimony.
Absolutely.
COVID was
unavoidably so.
Yeah.
Because it was just such a big part of, it was this atomic bomb to our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we thought was rock solid, our friendships, the school, all of the routines that we thought were set in stone for us culturally.
Sorry.
For those audio listeners, they Ashley just hit her head on a whiteboard.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Twice.
we're in a different room right now. Because the room that we usually use is full of a bunch of junk. So we are now.
We've got some
an office.
construction type
Yeah.
project going
I
on.
like this
so
though.
This is
I
nice.
have a
drew
cute
the
little
I drew the
glass board.
Yes.
I
pretty
drew the
great.
Student Life logo.
But COVID was absolutely a disruptor of
Yeah.
people's lives
Yeah.
and realities,
Yeah.
and
But
it made you
it's-
search yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where like when you hit rock bottom or when life suddenly changes, you start to look for something to hold on to.
Absolutely.
That's just pretty much universally true for anybody. If you ask anybody their testimony, usually there's some point in there where life just got turned on its head. They got uncomfortable. The heat got turned up, and then they had this come to Jesus
Yes,
moment where
for sure.
it was he was there, he's unchanging, he is steady, and that was what they chose to
Yes.
latch
For
on
sure.
to. That's COVID for so many students in our generation.
For sure.
So, what was your COVID experience?
So COVID for me was actually almost the opposite. It wasn't my rock bottom. It was my like almost like not no.
I peaked in
I-
COVID.
I
Same,
wouldn't
bro.
say peaked. I would say it was like my launch pad.
Yeah.
It was
Ooh.
it was very interesting because I had almost like how do I explain this? I had almost like this feeling that everybody else was finally where I was at. Because through the whole freshman year and then summer and middle school, I guess, too, partially, of feeling behind and feeling isolated and feeling lonely.
That was the
and
status quo now.
feeling that was what everyone else was feeling all of
Yeah.
a sudden in COVID. And I'm like, okay, I all of a sudden have this time now to catch up to everybody else. So once COVID's over, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be where everybody else is. We're all restarting.
COVID, the great equalizer.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's kind of what it felt like in every aspect. In my loneliness and my friendships, nobody else could get together. So I no longer had FOMO because no
There
one
was
else.
nothing to miss out
there was
on.
nothing to miss out on. And so I'm kind
Fear
of
of
like,
that is really
you know,
honest.
like, yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I know that COVID is obviously such a sensitive season and time for a lot of people, and there's a lot of
Yes.
heartbreak, but I personally did not get any, I was not affected from COVID in that way. So the way that I was like, oh, okay, like everybody else is
Yeah.
like, you know, on pause, and that gives me time to catch up. And so in the friendship side of things and the loneliness side of things, it was kind of like, it's sad, but it's the truth of like, I felt like, okay, everybody else has experienced the isolation that I've been feeling. And we're kind of getting on this like even playing field. And then spiritually though, on the faith side of it, because I had such like a almost identity crisis with my faith and my Christianity throughout freshman year of high school, I felt like, okay, like I can take this time to get caught up in my faith almost. I know that's kind of a weird way of putting it, but I felt like, okay, I can take time and research my faith and research what does the Bible say Christianity is, what does the Bible say, like, you know, just the basics of my relationship with God. And there was a lot of like questions that I had in my mind of, okay, yes, I believe in God, but is he good? You know, I believe in God, but is it relationship? Is it religion? Is it tradition? Is it going to church every Sunday? Is it, you know, a book of rules? And I had all these questions that, I mean, a lot of new believers have, but I felt like I had the time to figure it out because everyone else was on pause. I had the time to do the research and almost get to everybody else's level. And again, right before COVID, actually we were
COVID almost, because again, we're not at all downplaying people's hard experiences in COVID.
Yeah,
We're like, we
100%.
just want to dismiss that.
Yeah.
But COVID for you was a chance, as the world did slow down, because that's what COVID did, and that obviously slowed down for better and worse, and everyone's unique family situation. But it gave you space to think about Jesus
Yeah.
and to investigate questions that because of loneliness and isolation,
Yeah.
you didn't investigate before.
100%.
Is that a good summary of what you just said and what you were trying to communicate?
Yeah, because
okay.
it felt like in the, before COVID, it felt like the world was still going and everyone else was going and
that can be
and we're
intimidating.
rooted.
That can
It's
be
so
super
intimidating. So intimidating.
100%. Not anyone else's. It's not like the world. It's intimidating.
Yeah, in school it felt intimidating socially, and then in church it felt intimidating, in your faith, because it's like, everybody knows the Bible. Everybody knows, everybody has their cliques, and everybody, is just used to living this lifestyle, and I have no clue what I'm doing, and it was so intimidating. And so it totally gave me that space to finally let me do the hard work, let me do the research, let me pause with the rest of the world and get caught up almost. And so right before COVID hit, actually, my mom and I and my dad would go and we looked at like a handful of churches. We would try out a couple of churches. But funny enough, actually, OneLife was one of them back in January of 2020. My mom and I got up on a Sunday and we were like, okay, let's, go try out this church that we saw meets at Grandview at my high school. And I'm like, oh yeah, I saw a sign for them the other day. And she's like, yeah, sure, let's go look at this church. And I think it was either the very first service that OneLife had ever done, or it was the second. It was either the first or the second service that OneLife had ever done. But my mom and I didn't know that. We thought that this was already an established church, because that's what we were used to going to, established churches with their communities and their pastors and their volunteers and their key people that we just kind of go experience and and kind of see. And so that's what we thought OneLife was again. But when we went, we were like, oh, they're a new church.
You walked into a disorganized train wreck.
I wouldn't say that.
No.
I would say
to
that now.
A new birth family.
Yeah, it was
I
like...
hope we're not a disorganized train wreck now.
No, I love this. I love OneLife.
Depends on the day.
Yeah. But it all works out in the end. Leaders. But we walked in and we're like, oh, this is a very new ministry. This is a brand new church. That's kind of exciting for at least for me. I can't speak for my mom, but for me, I'm like,
it was
this
exciting.
is cool.
This is a place where I can integrate.
Yeah, nobody knows anybody.
Yes.
It's like everyone's new. And so I'm like, okay, that's cool. That was very intriguing to me. And so I loved it. I'm like, okay, let's go back. And so, for again, whatever reasons we didn't. And then, a couple months later, COVID hit. And so that's when I'm like, okay, I'm doing the work myself. I ordered my first ever Bible off of, I think, Amazon or something. I ordered a Bible online, and I looked up devotionals online, and I looked up the Bible app and their reading plans. And throughout all of COVID and that summer, I was doing my own Bible study and doing my own devotionals and doing my own, research. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, let me at least figure out what this means and what this looks like. And then I can figure out my beliefs and what I agree with or don't agree with from there. And I can figure out where I sit with everything from there. And then I just, absolutely fell in love with Jesus. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I want to keep knowing more. I want to go to church. I want to be in fellowship. And so, and I want to learn more and dive deeper. And so that's where the heart, kind of started, and that's where my relationship started, I would say. And then all of a sudden, in the midst of COVID, OneLife was probably, I think, one of the first churches to open up in person again. And so I had seen that. I saw that on Instagram. I saw OneLife post something along the lines of we're back in person. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, it was August, September or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was even a little bit earlier than that. Yeah. It was during the summer, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And so I told my parents, I'm like, oh, this church OneLife that, me and mom went to, they're opening up again at Grandview. Yeah. And I kind of sold it to my parents because they were like, yeah, I don't know, and, it's still kind of COVID and you still have to wear your masks and all these different things. And so, but I told them, and I'm like, but let me at least go see my high school again, because I went from being at my high school for 6 days a week, because I was helping out with I was the basketball manager, so I was there on Saturdays too. So I went from being at school all the time to COVID hitting, not being there at all. I'm like, okay, well, let me at least go see my school again. I haven't been in that building, and I kind of miss it. You know, I want to just go see what it's like. It was COVID, everything was different. You just want to experience it. And so they're like, okay, yeah, you know, like it'll be nice to be back in the school again, even though it's for church, and be back with people again and see what it's like and see what the new normal is. So sure enough, that summer, my parents and I went, and I kept going ever since. And so I just like fell in love with the community, fell in love with the leadership, fell in love with Pastor Jon and Joanna and the way that they ran this brand new church. And again, that was also still very intriguing. I'm like, okay, like I feel like I can do this. The church was absolutely flooded with students and youth kids that came from Jubilee to be a part of the ministry here with Jon and Joanna. And that was also cool to me. I'm like, okay, there's a lot of kids my
a lot
age,
of young people.
who are pursuing the Lord like this. And so I've been going ever since.
Wow. So you met Jesus kind of through the word on a personal journey, and then God like sovereignly introduced a community that you were able to connect with, and sounds like heal in. If I were just like to almost summarize your story in like a palpable sentence. I like doing stuff like that. You guys know that. So, okay, Ashley, as you've grown here, one of the ways you've grown is being involved in the student life ministry. What the ministry that this podcast is based off of, and the ministry that employs me and Jon, and you've seen it evolve from you were part of the first class that as a student, and now you're such an integral part of it as an adult leader and such a key discipler. And so what's it been like seeing Student Life evolve as a youth group? Could you just let us into that journey a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, it's been super exciting. I think one of the biggest blessings is the fact that I have been here since the beginning. I know that there's a few other students and leaders who have been here from the beginning as well. But I mean, I was, back before it was even Student Life, it was First Wednesdays. We would meet at Jon and Joanna's house kind of during the summertime, and we'd go to their house, then we'd go to a park, and then we'd go back to their house and do some fellowship and Bible study in small groups once a month, and then all of a sudden we got our old building, the storefront, and we started meeting once a week, and then it became Student Life, and then it became kind of this full, on ministry. And I was a student through all of that. And then to be able to graduate from student and then be able to still be a leader is super exciting. Being under Danny Franson when she was the youth pastor was really exciting. And it grew me a lot. And she's an incredible still mentor in my life. And then when you came along, just, oh my gosh, absolute just fresh wind and fresh vision, and being able to step kind of into that leadership was really exciting too. So I think it's just such a blessing to have that perspective, to be able to have a new student come in and be like, hey, like not only was I once in your shoes in general as like, 3-4 years ago, I was in high school too. That's that is, a huge benefit, especially being like we're just so young and we're Gen Z, and, we're not far removed from high school.
A lot of empathy in our leadership.
Oh, for sure. But then the added layer is like, no, but I've been in this ministry as a student. I've been in these retreats as a student. I've been in these small groups as a student, and they've shaped me. Like I am the woman of God, and I am the person that I am because of the ministry that I get to now help lead in. And like that generational, like full circle impact has, oh my gosh, I mean, it has blown me away. And it's really sweet. It's really sweet to see the changes, because I mean, it has changed, right? But I mean, there's been beautiful parts of every season of Student Life, and I've gotten to see that in firsthand. I mean, that's awesome. As a student, Student Life has gotten me through some of the hardest seasons and through some of the biggest heartbreaks. And then as a leader, it was challenging. That transition from student to leader was challenging. It was hard because, it's okay, I'm coming on a Wednesday night still, but it's for a very different reason, and I play a very different role. And then when you came in, it was very exciting because I felt like you gave a lot of the leaders here a lot of authority, of just like, you step into, the way that you lead your group in this ministry, you know, and then also being able to do the graphic design stuff, you know, it's like, it's not just a hobby at this point. I feel like it is a ministry for me.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely,
it's like
is a ministry. It
yeah,
ministers to so many people.
I love it. You know, I get to be creative, and I get to have that outlet. So that's been a really cool season too. And then also obviously to be able to lead alongside my now fiance has been incredible, and to be able to do all of that, you know, in student life and go through so many different seasons and experiences in the same ministry.
Yeah.
It's just really sweet. It's really sweet to see how
That's
God
thanks for
uses
sharing all
different
of
seasons.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
As you disciple fervently, that's how I describe your discipleship. What are your hopes for the girls you're discipling? What are your hopes for just, you know, you've been so integral in championing the student life vision of bringing heaven to earth, and seeing, you know, heaven come to Aurora through our group of ragtag middle schoolers and high schoolers that are all different. All of us are so different, and yet we're united in a love for Jesus. What do you hope to see continue to happen in our students and your students and our family?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that it's always authentic. I hope that students and leaders are okay with the fact that there are going to be different seasons and there is going to be change, and it's never going to look the same, especially in a ministry like this where literally every year, every season, there's a new group of people.
Yes.
You know, it's not like a women's ministry or men's ministry where, okay, it's a new year. Like there's going to be a whole section.
There's no graduation.
Yeah, there's
for
no graduation.
men's Bible study.
Right, yeah.
If you got a 20-year-old, you know, you got men's Bible study, they could be there for 20
years.
However
long the Lord has them there, or 6 months.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's a great point. I haven't really thought about that.
Yeah, and I hope that you know, the students are okay with that and excited. And I know that there's, you know, some grief there and there's some change. I mean, change is always hard, but I hope that every student is just excited to see that. I hope that also, you know, that they understand their generational impact. You know, again, not just generational of like literal generations of 15, 20 years, but just even, you know, now, you know, as you go into, you know, middle school to high school, from upper class or lower classmen to upperclassmen, from a student to graduated, I hope that they know that what they're doing now is going to affect the next generation.
Yes.
You know, because I've seen that. Like I said, again, that's a big part of my testimony. That's a big part of, you know, my role here at Student Life, is I've seen that myself. I've seen like, oh, what I was doing as a senior in high school is affecting my leadership now, but it's also affected the girls that were around me, you know, and that's, you know, it's, our generation has a part to play in the next generation, and that's always going to be true. There's no way around that. And so I hope they like own that. I hope that excites our students. I hope that gets them motivated and excited of knowing that they have a part to play, not only in their lives and their generation, but the next students to come.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the coolest things about our youth group is we're a 6th through 12th grade youth group.
Yeah.
You know, and
6th graders come in and they don't hear a separate message from the 12th graders. They don't get separate worship from the 12th graders.
They're grafted in.
They're the trial by fire.
Yes. But I think that builds this principle we see throughout Scripture of imitation. You know, Paul's saying, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Hebrews saying, look at the leaders who've gone before you, look at their outcome of life, and do what they do as you evaluate that. And I just, you can't help but like all of our 6th grade and 7th grade girls imitate our senior and junior girls.
Yeah. Oh,
you know, if I wonder if you went to that group, you know, who's your heroes?
Yeah.
Some of those heroes would be our juniors, our seniors, you know, and so I think that's such a healthy culture. So I love that you get to share that. If you know, as we kind of wrap up here, and thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable with your story, and just the fact that God Yeah, just there's a lot of redemption and healing in your story. You know, this theme of loneliness and isolation getting met with redemption in Jesus's word and in his church is just really beautiful. So thanks for really sharing that. I'm sure that's resonating with people listening, and probably your girls that are listening. I don't know if they've ever heard your full story and some of the full like realness of that. If you were gonna give one piece of wisdom from your walk with Jesus, from your time in his word, from your experience in church, to the listener, what would that piece of wisdom be? What would you want to share?
Yeah, I think this is something that I actually used to say a lot, even as a student in our small group, but I haven't said it as much anymore, but I still think about it a lot. Is just the spiritual discipline of taking your thoughts captive is so important in this life and in your walk with God, and especially in this generation. I think there's so many times that I hear about what our girls are struggling with and what our generation is struggling with and what our youth group is struggling with. And personally, I can trace it back to your thought life and your thought patterns. And it's incredible because the Lord gives us, through the Holy Spirit, authority to take our thoughts captive and to silence the lies of the enemy. And I'm not saying that it's easy. It's very difficult, but I'm saying that, it's something that you have to be very aware of, in a generation where mental health is such a key problem and dictator of our lives. It's just, you have to continually be aware of the Lord is giving you authority over your thoughts, and that affects so many other things. I think like I said, I can trace so many actions and so many attitudes and so many lifestyles back to your thought patterns and your thought processes. And, and it's not this like kind of hippie, like, oh, like just be joyful and happy all the time. It's like,
think positive things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, it's not that. It's a take ground and take your thoughts captive and work on that discipline. And it takes time. And it takes retraining your brain, and it takes habit forming and
knowing the word.
And it takes, and so, but yeah, I think that's something that I hold very, I hold on to that kind of just that, verse, biblically, there's so many different verses that reference that and allude to that of taking your thoughts captive. But just in my life, I think I've noticed such a difference in my walk with God, in the fruit in my life. I think I've noticed a huge difference on fruitful seasons versus non-fruitful seasons. And it's okay, well, what is my thought life like right now? Like, am I giving my thoughts over to the Lord? And so I'd say that's just something to even just be aware of, even though it might be a very hard thing to do, just being aware of it as a starting place is a huge step.
Thanks for sharing that. I think at StudentLife, man, we're trying to be a word saturated, truth saturated community, because there are plenty of other thoughts we can think, and we want to think the truth. So that's so good. John, you got anything?
No, man.
Ashley, thanks.
Love you.
I love you.
I know we get to this is fun to see you guys together in this kind of ministry context. So well, thank you so much for sharing your story and your testimony and your wisdom, and we're just so grateful for you. Guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the May episode of the For the One podcast. This is Cole,
John,
and Ashley.
Out.
Peace. I want food.